Hi, everybody. Welcome to TIA Now. I'm Clarence Reynolds. Network functions virtualization is here, but many companies see their role changing in the coming 5G world. Customers are demanding instant everything and data everywhere, and that's putting pressure on performance criteria. Dell EMC's Kevin Shatzkamer is here to talk about that transformation. Kevin, welcome. Kevin, there's a lot of speculation about the benefits of NFV, but from Dell EMC's perspective, what are some of the efficiencies that we can expect from NFV?
Sure. I think the overall goal of NFV is really twofold. One is to reduce CapEx, and the second is to reduce OpEx. And generally speaking, I think the core benefits when we talk to customers and when we're working with customers to implement technology is really about agility. The end goal of driving and building an architecture built around virtualized and software programmability is really to be able to launch new services quicker, bring them to market, launch them to customers, and then in the reverse way, if services are not adopted, to have the ability to roll back those services out of the catalog of offerings to consumers. So I think as we build out this infrastructure at the core, certainly CapEx benefits the migration from appliances to virtualized technology sitting on top of x86 architectures. Certainly there's benefits from an operational perspective because we can include more automation capabilities and orchestration, but really the flexibility and the agility to bring these services to market and meet consumer demand in a more rapid fashion.
So what do you see as some of the barriers to adoption?
Yeah, I think, so a couple of things. The technology is ready, right? As you said earlier in the presentation, NFV is here. The technology is ready. It is in production environments, in large proof of concepts. It's in production environments and small field trials. What we haven't seen is NFV really cross the chasm into large-scale operationalization. And I think that the reason that that's happening is not because the technology is not mature enough, but more because the operational processes are not mature enough to adopt the technology, and that the people are not armed with the right set of skills and capabilities and retraining the workforce in order to be able to have those skills and capabilities to then build the operational models to leverage the technology. That's where we're stuck as an industry at the moment.
One of the interesting aspects of NFV is a move toward multi-vendor alliances. How are those going to work?
Yeah, I think the legacy mechanism of procurement that service providers have typically gone down is to procure an entire stack from one vendor. As you mentioned, the ecosystems are changing. It's not just vendors involved in the ecosystem, it's open source projects. It's vendors that are commercializing open source projects. It's vendor technology. And I think as we watch these ecosystems get built, and certainly Dell EMC and the overall Dell Technologies organization with VMware and Pivotal Cloud Foundry and VirtuStream and various others are building ecosystems. But I think what we recognize is that in building those ecosystems, we have to do so in a very open way, meaning that we can't now take 2, 3, 4 vendors and build the new proprietary. What we have to do is build it in a way that there's openness between each of the different vendors within the ecosystem, so that while we do have a point of view and we do have integrated solutions, there's still the flexibility for service providers within the industry to disaggregate that stack. Because as much as we talk about NFV and drive these new ecosystem models, I think at the core of what carriers and service providers are really trying to drive is this concept of disaggregation. Disaggregation of hardware and software stacks with NFV, disaggregation of control and data planes with SDN, and overall disaggregation from a procurement perspective. So we have some service providers who ask us to provide hardware and don't allow us to provide software, and the reverse holds true. Right? So if you're a software provider, you don't have the ability to provide infrastructure. We see other service providers that are looking for full stack solutions, and they'll act as their own integrator. And then we see a third type that want to see the vendors continue to act like systems integrators, much the way they've always done. And to be able to support all of these disparate models within this new disaggregated landscape requires that openness and flexibility between the different layers of the solutions.
How is Dell EMC poised to handle the legacy infrastructure challenges?
Yeah, I think when we think about the legacy infrastructure challenges, the legacy infrastructure was really very rigid, meaning that the ability to be able to customize the infrastructure, the ability to be able to program the infrastructure, and the ability to be able to scale the infrastructure in small increments was a challenge. we still continue to see that we live in the old world and the new world simultaneously. The old infrastructure is still in place for most core workloads, and where that service agility, where the flexibility, and where the openness is really needed, we see infrastructure being stood up adjacent to that core infrastructure. And I think that's where we'll largely remain for the remainder of 4G. As we start to talk about 5G, I think that 5G foundationally will be built on the building blocks of what we're doing in proof of concepts and trials today. It will be built on software-defined networking. It will be built on network functions virtualization. It will be built on edge computing. And it will be built on a completely new operational model that very heavily embraces zero-touch, closed-loop automation and orchestration.
What are the overall goals for Dell EMC's deployment moving forward?
Sure. So Dell Technologies overall, the strategy and vision that we have as a company is to become the essential infrastructure provider. That's to IT organizations, that's to service providers, that's to governments, that's to municipalities as they embrace IoT, connected venues and stadiums and cities and communities. Specifically in the service provider space, our goal is to be able to provide open and disaggregated systems and solutions to our customers. So Dell EMC is a very firm believer in disaggregation. We think that disaggregation is a mechanism to really drive the openness and flexibility that I referenced earlier. And Dell EMC is embracing that 100%. We embrace that in terms of how we build our technology. We embrace that in terms of how we bring that technology to market. And we embrace that in terms of how we look at building the right sets of partnerships within the industry with like-minded members of the ecosystem that contribute in the same way.
Excellent. Well, Kevin, thank you for being with us today. And we'd like to hear your feedback, so reach out to us on Facebook or Twitter. And thanks for watching.